I'm Adam Paschal, your room host for the Cooperative Housing Table Talk. We're excited that you joined us today. Table Talks are a new addition to the conference this year. They're meant for you to have peer-to-peer exchange around particular topics. So these are meant to be conversational, interactive, and we hope you have time to ask all your questions. So just so you know, all these sessions are being recorded. When you're not asking a question, please remain muted. But if you are asking a question, feel free to turn your camera on, unmute, and join the conversation. That's all for me. So I'll turn it over to you, Tracy and Davey.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Adam. We appreciate being here today and also your service on our board. We really like that too. So as I said, my name is Tracy McIntyre. I'm the Executive Director of the Montana Cooperative Development Center. I'm joined by, actually, it looks like 2 of my team members are here today. So I'll let Davey introduce herself, and then Shandy, if you want to introduce yourself as well. And then we'll kind of, we'll go from there.
Morning, everybody. I am Davey Madison. I am the program director at MCDC, and I've been with MCDC for just about 2 years now. And so we've been doing quite a bit of work around housing cooperatives, kind of around a lot of community solutions based, I think. So I'm excited to talk with all of you.
Wonderful. And Shandy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Did I unmute myself?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Shandy Pearson. I'm the Funds and Sustainability Manager for Montana Cooperative Development Center. I am brand new, and I am here to listen to the greats speak and I learn a little bit. So I'm super excited.
Awesome. So what we did not do a formal presentation for you guys. What I understand is you guys all have been in numerous conversations throughout the last day and a half. And this is an opportunity to ask questions, to be engaged. We really are hoping that this can be a good dialogue between people. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but I'm zoomed out a little bit, but we do have a presentation if nobody's talking, so we can do it. But we would love to have an opportunity just to see if you guys had questions. What were your interests in joining a conversation around housing co-ops? What would you like to learn? I think we have 30 minutes to kind of go through anything and everything that you guys would like to. So I'm going to give you a moment to maybe, Adam, if that's cool, to learn or just have people talk to us and see what they want to know. So what do we got? Okay, so Tracy, we could definitely give you an overview of who we are. So Montana Cooperative Development Center is a statewide organization. We serve all 56 counties and all the tribal reservations as well. Our goal is, well, our mission is to use the cooperative business model to address community and economic needs. We use that cooperative business model. As Davey said, we're using it in multiple ways across the state. Some of those are looking at traditional housing market or housing co-ops. And we also have investment co-ops that we can go into more detail. Davey, I do think maybe we should just go ahead and go through the presentation.
We could do it pretty fast and high level.
Yeah, because I'm seeing more of those popping up. Okay. So let's just do that and give you guys a better overview of what we are and what we do. Just have to share my screen. And if anybody heard me talk like recently, I apologize because this is very similar to previous slideshows that we've done. So can everybody see that okay? So as I mentioned, we are to promote and develop cooperatives to meet economic and community needs of Montana. We are considered an economic development organization, but we also have the Montana Council of Cooperatives in our office. So we build new co-ops and then we provide services to sustain and strengthen existing cooperatives. We do have a network. We partner and contract with economic developers across the state of Montana. And this is our network as of today. You'll see Montana is a very large state, so we use these as our entry points, and we do some training with each one of them so that they can get the basics and be connection points for us. There is quite the ecosystem in the state to support cooperatives. Most people are familiar with their credit unions, the telecommunication co-ops, and the electrical co-ops. You'll see that we all interact and we work well together. And then our team also has some legal and accounting professionals that we bring into any project that we're working on, as well as if we are providing any assistance to existing co-ops that need that additional assistance. I'm gonna skip this one just because I rather talk to you guys, but these are just samples of the different types of cooperatives. Some people are a little shocked to see like Ace Hardware on there or Orlando Lake. So co-ops are very vast, and we can basically work in any form of industry in the state of Montana. There are roughly 30 different types of farm and fuel supply, ag-based co-ops, 45 credit unions, 25 electrical, 8 telecommunications. And then where our office has been serving mostly is the creation of the cooperative associations. These include producer, consumer, hybrid co-ops, retail services, and a lot of the work that we're doing in housing is within the cooperative associations as well. Co-ops are roughly putting out about $7.6 billion a year into the state economy. So we're definitely not small. And then we have an impact report if anybody wants to learn more about us as a cooperative ecosystem on our website, which is pretty simple. It's just mcdc.coop. So at the end of the day, what is a co-op? A co-op is an enterprise created by a group of people who join forces and work together to solve a problem or reach a goal they all share. And co-ops always are membership owned, they're membership controlled, and they really should be benefiting those that are their members. And these slides we can make available, Adam, to the membership because they have a lot of detail in them. So if anybody wants to go through and read them, you can always do that. There's 2 forms of stock in co-ops. The common stock is the members. They have the voting rights. If there's a profit, they can get a return called patronage. They can run for leadership. They should be engaged, and they're part of the democratic ownership. We then also have preferred stock. Preferred stock is basically a way to do an investment into a co-op. It's non-voting. They are called preferred because they receive a dividend or a return if the co-op is profitable at the very first. And it's very important to understand that even if you own preferred stock, you do not have any additional ownership in the cooperative. Co-ops are a global form of business. There's over 3 million worldwide, and all co-ops do follow the same 7 guiding principles. And again, you'll get these slides if you really want to read more details. We have 4 chapters in the state of Montana. Our housing co-op work that we do is focused mostly in the cooperative association, which is called a Chapter 15. These are not charitable entities. They are for-profit. We do have some tax exemptions that we can do in the agricultural and the utilities, but co-ops for the most part are for-profit businesses. To form a co-op, you would basically start with an introduction, similar to what we're doing today. And then we would have form a steering committee, and that's when Davey and the team that we have here at the Montana Co-op Development Center really starts working with that steering committee to identify the feasibility, to create business plans, and define what the co-op is going to do and how it will operate. We also walk you through legal phases, and then we'll also do operational phase and continue on into implementation. Is there any questions about the overall co-ops before we talk about some housing solutions? I can't see anybody at this point. Okay. So I'll jump into just a little bit more about traditional housing co-ops. So housing co-ops are not anything new. The first housing co-op was actually in 1876 in New York. We see housing co-ops serving universities. There's families, there's condo type ones, there's senior living, just a multitude of different ways. Most housing co-ops fit within a market rate, which just allows members to buy and sell based on market value. We can, and this is where a lot of interest has been coming in, a limited equity. So we can build into the initial co-op that their equity can be capped at a certain growth. One of the co-ops that we work with in the state of Montana has a 1% equity growth per year. And then you can do like senior housing, which is restricted to 55 and plus. There's also mutual housing associations. We work really closely with NeighborWorks Montana. They run the what's Rock USA and the community ownership ones. They're just a little bit different, but do follow the same cooperative principles. I'm not going to go through that slide. So the big things to take away on a housing co-op is that they're collectively owned and governed by the members. In traditional housing co-ops, the members are the people that live there. And it's very different in the sense like condo is usually that you own the unit within the walls. In a co-op, you own a share of the entire facility. So if that facility is the ground, if it's 15 different houses, complex, whatever that may be, you own your share of that, not necessarily an individual unit. You can gain equity in a housing co-op. And there's usually some form of an occupancy agreement and monthly charges. Really the only co-op that we have is called Riverside Crossing. It's in Hamilton. It is a 55 and plus pocket neighborhood. This is a beautiful example of a partnership that happened with the Ravalli County's Council of Aging. They had received a donation of land and they built a housing cooperative on top. There's 8 different designs. This is not for low income. This is definitely more of the opportunity. The idea was that the housing co-op would help generate a movement of seniors out of maybe starter homes. They can downsize, move into this type of a co-op, opening up some workforce and starter homes at the same time, seeing that natural cycle. It's actually just absolutely beautiful. They have 14 members and they're starting to work on their second phase. And then I've got a lot of slides on this, but we're gonna, whoops, I'm going backwards. Sorry, guys. Hit the wrong button. Davey, did you want to add anything on traditional housing? Okay, so then when we go further into it, we're not seeing a lot of interest in housing co-ops in that traditional sense of what we just went through. What we are seeing a lot of interest is more of an investment co-op. So MCDC has been asked to come into a lot of different communities, and it's normally business owners that are asking us to come in and talk to them about how could cooperatives address workforce needs. And those workforce needs are that they're struggling finding housing for their workforce and or childcare. And what we find is as we're talking to them, the opportunity for them to combine their resources and create an investment co-op to either purchase, invest in, or rent housing units is really kind of where they want to go. They don't necessarily want to own houses as much as they want to be able to invest in opportunities for their workers to do that. And so we're seeing a number of these type of models pop up. We do have one. Gardner, Montana completed theirs a few years ago. They have unfortunately stalled a little bit in the implementation, but they gave us a great model to work off of. And Davey, we have 4 or 5 communities right now working on these type of investment co-ops to address housing in their local communities. There's a lot of details in the investment co-op, but at the end of the day, you still go through the same process. You create a steering committee. You incorporate underneath a Chapter 15, so it is a for-profit company. You can sell both common stock, which gives ownership, and preferred stock. We do recommend that if a community looks at doing an investment co-op, that they keep their ownership, that common stock, at a very low rate, and then use the preferred stock to offer different opportunities for community members and or businesses, however it's structured, to put their money into something that means well to them. So if Davey and I both belong to one, I want to put my money towards a childcare center, I can use a preferred stock offering to do that. Where Davey wants to do more housing, she could use a different preferred stock, but it's all under the same cooperative. So it gives us a lot of flexibility on how we can address needs in communities. Davey, do you want to add anything? These are your favorite forms, so.
No, I think you covered it. I think they'll hopefully people will have questions because I can talk about them all day. So I don't want to leave us here too long.
Right. The other thing I do want to point out, and with any co-op, there is an annual cap on the rate of return. And so one of the things that we really want to stress is the investment co-ops are not necessarily about the return of money. It is about the return of making a difference in your community. It's about investing in projects and people, not necessarily having that return of a financial gain. It's about creating opportunities to address your local issues by local community members. And when we say local community members, that can be businesses, it can be individuals, it can be other nonprofits. We can get very creative in the structure of these, but at the same time, we just really want to stress that people understand it's not about the money return when you're creating this investment co-op. And I think after that, that's all I have from a presentation viewpoint. Are there any questions? They're all talked out.
I'll throw you a question to get us started.
Awesome.
You covered it a little bit, but here in Montana, if somebody's interested in starting a cooperative, what's their first step?
Call Davey. No, but if you are interested in doing a co-op in your community, what we offer is one of us. So we actually have 7 team members. We have a person in Missoula, 2 people are in Helena, 3 of us are in Great Falls, and 1 is in Roundup. So we are able to respond. But we can come into your community, host kind of a co-op 101 that is a little bit deeper than what I gave right here, and really explore that conversation. Is this something that your community wants to do? And if so, then we set up a steering committee, and that's where we really start working with you guys to define, what's the pros and cons. Is a co-op the right route? We do look at some others. We also, because we're connected with the economic development community, where we work with the Small Business Development Center, we work on business planning, but we do have some avenues to explore. Is this the right fit? And then work you through that whole process. So we're there from the very start. Now, with saying that, it's a very big state and we have multiple projects. We won't be at every meeting that you host, but we are there to help you through all of the steps.
If anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. You can click the reaction button and hit the little raise hand, or feel free to unmute yourself.
This is Tracy, and I'm just curious if you could provide some examples around housing co-ops that are taking place. This is the first experience I've had even talking about cooperatives, so my mind is exploding with 1,000 questions, but I'd like to really know specifically what housing co-ops are you working with?
Yeah, so really the only true housing co-op in the state of Montana is that Riverside Crossing that I told you about in Ravalli County. But that's not to say that there hasn't been a lot of other discussions on the traditional ones. The communities that we're working with that we can be pretty open about, Baker is looking at an investment co-op. Whitefish is looking at an investment co-op and the opportunity where their employers can come together and put money towards development of apartment type complexes, to where then they have the employers that are investing in have like almost a retainer on those units for their workers. Davey, do you want to talk about Baker a little bit? I think that's a
Yeah.
good example.
So you know, a lot of the times that when we're talking about them, like Tracy said, we don't have a lot of traditional ones. A lot of them have been leaning towards this investment model. And a big reason for that is because in a lot of instances, purchasing land and purchasing dwellings are two very big expenses, and land is getting more and more expensive in Montana. And so what they're doing in Baker is there's actually a building that a nonprofit already owns. And they have already done it's an old, like, I want to say it was 1908 or something. So, but they've already done a lot of the brownfields and the mitigation on that building. And so what they're looking at doing, and the reason the project is stalled, is that they ran out of money to finish the actual renovation of the building after the mitigation was done with the brownfields program. And so really the investment co-op is coming in and sort of acting as a developer in that sense. They're going to try to raise the capital to finish the actual build out of that location. And that location is going to be a multi-use facility. So there'll be commercial space and office space on the first floor. And then there's 2 stories, which I want to say, I can't remember if it's 6 or 8, but there's 6 or 8 apartments that they'd be able to renovate. And that's really where the investment co-op is coming in to step in to help with that. So they wouldn't own the building, that ownership would still stay with the nonprofit, but they would do revenue sharing to make back that investment. So they're really kind of playing that, sort of acting as sort of like a gap financer for that project. In other instances that we're working on, there's other ones where in sort of the same way that Riverside Crossing has done, where a nonprofit or a municipality or maybe a trust would still maintain the ownership of the land, and the building above would be owned by the co-op, which is sort of where we're seeing a lot of that happening. We work pretty closely with Trust Montana, and we're trying to develop more guides around what that looks like about building a co-op and on trust land. And so that's really where a lot of it's happening right now, because the building costs are so high, as everybody knows, the price of the home, the price of land, that's all adds up. And so trying to do the entirety of a project through just a co-op can be challenging. So the investment co-ops are really working hand in hand with nonprofits to see, can the nonprofit maintain ownership of the land or the dwelling, or can a nonprofit, lease it to the co-op, or can the co-op lease it back to the nonprofit? So really trying to make sure those partnerships are set up early in the process is really important.
And if I can add to that, we're not allowed to talk about the location yet, but we do have a county that has about 10 acres that is looking at donating it to a partner of ours. They'll own the land, and then we're looking at doing a missing middle, a worker type of co-op, but it will be a more traditional one in that sense, to where, it would be the people that live in those units would be the ones that would own, and then they can gain equity. And that in the sense of a housing co-op, it's really important to understand that you're still getting equity, you still own it, you still have that value, but the opportunity to kind of share those resources, so you're not trying to build a home on your own, it's that kind of opportunity that we want to try to give to people, especially in the missing middle worker kind of atmosphere. Housing co-ops can be done for low income. It's just a little bit more challenging. We have a project with NeighborWorks Montana. They're looking at doing a housing co-op in Missoula right now, which there's been some articles about, and that's a lower income project. So we're exploring some different avenues, but as far as other examples, housing co-ops have been around since 1876. So there's multitude of examples from our counterparts. Most of them are in the Eastern Seaboard.
All right, we do have a question in the chat there from Julie. If we had a group of home buyers who want to pool their resources and purchase a multiple unit building, could you help guide them through starting this?
Absolutely, that's part of our role. And so when we say, like, we can come into your community and talk, that community can be 5 people. If this is a group, like if this is people that are already living in units that want to talk about it, that would be more of the community. So the other thing, because these are for-profit entities, they are not public. They're not things that you have to do out in the public. If there's a small group that wants to do it, you can do that. You just can't discriminate for any reason, but you can put parameters of 55 and plus older. You can say, you know, this is the income levels. You can put some membership restrictions around to meet the need that you're trying to reach. You just can't discriminate for any other reasons. So yes, Julie, happy to come in and work with you.
Quiet bunch.
They did this to us last year too. Like we left room to talk and then nobody like asked questions. And we're like, come on, we like questions, come on.
Got about 5 minutes left. So if anybody has a burning question or even not so burning question, don't be shy.
Hi, this is Gina Chamberlain with RCAC, and forgive me if you've already covered this, but we were having a conversation about like co-ops versus CLTs when it comes to housing, and that actually co-ops offer some benefits to certain populations that a CLT can't because of like the ownership. And they were really looking at folks in their community that didn't necessarily have the legal status for ownership when it comes to, you know, you don't necessarily have to be a citizen, but there's different types of eligible, qualified, eligible, non-citizen. And there would be people who didn't necessarily have that right type of documentation that allowed them to purchase, but a co-op allowed them to enter into a co-op versus a CLT. And then it also gave them a little, they haven't developed yet. So these are the questions that they're struggling with. They thought a co-op would also allow them some more flexibility around like credit issues that then folks can work on, that they're coming in a different, the lending and the ownership is a little bit different. So it allowed them to serve a market in their community that wasn't being served by other homeownership models. Did that make sense? And
yeah, Gina, I think it did. We know that housing co-ops or cooperatives in general can be, we have some flexibility in how we set them up. You normally in the housing co-op, like a traditional housing, you still have to be somewhat bankable because most of the time you need to be able to get some type of a loan for that mortgage component. But like I said, we can be a little creative. So if there's issues or if there's some ownership components, those are things that we can really dig in and find maybe some creative solutions to. I'm not promising those. We do have some counterparts that have been, just as an example, been working with like recently released or pre-released individuals. And they've been talking about, can we create a housing/worker owned co-op to where those recently incarcerated individuals who often struggle to find housing for that reason can have a safe place to go and restart their lives, as well as have some work put into it. So those are some of the creative ways that we've been seeing happen. We haven't had those happen here in Montana as of yet, but it's definitely something I think that we can have a deeper discussion on and understand what exactly those obstacles are for those individuals, and can that co-op model address those and give them a different way of approach.
that's a great answer. And that's really what was exciting about the co-op model, is that it's not easy. You can think of it creatively. Each one might be a little bit different. So yeah, these folks are starting to navigate that process also. So it sounds like it's not a definite yes or definite no, but it is enough of a different model that you can kind of think a little bit outside the box to meet whatever that need is. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, well, we're just about at the noon hour, so thanks, Davey, and thanks, Tracy. Don't forget, you can continue the conversation in the Whova app. The next hour is a lunch break, and then we'll look forward to seeing everyone at 1 o'clock for more breakout sessions. So thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for hosting us, Adam.
My pleasure.